The web is alive these days with articles about the Orion launch, and everyone is speaking of it like it's some kind of great achievement in space science. For example, this article from Computer World makes a point of mentioning that Orion's maximum altitude of 3,600 miles is 15 times more than the International Space Station. Is that really an achievement, considering that it is 80 times less than any of the Apollo missions? And what about this article from ABC News about the Orion mission? It states, if this test succeeds, the next step will be another launch to circle the moon in 2018, followed by, in 2020, a manned circling of the moon. Really? An unmanned circling of the moon in 2018 and a manned circling in 2020? Considering the achievements that mankind made over 40 years ago by actually landing on the moon and returning safely to Earth, I wouldn't blame anyone for viewing the Orion mission as nothing more than a below-average high school project. What? Have all the knowledgeable rocket scientists of the last century died without telling anyone how to do these things that were achievable in 1969? Does the human race have to start all over again from the very beginning? So what's really going on here? In my opinion, today's space science achievements, like Orion and others, and the way they are reported, only makes it more and more obvious that the missions we see today are in fact a significant challenge and do represent man's greatest achievements in space science. And what we've been told about going to the moon almost half a century ago was absolutely impossible for the technology of the time. Indeed, I believe it even remains impossible for the technology of today. Oh, I'm confident that we could actually land a man's dead body onto the surface of the moon, killed by radiation before even getting there, especially if we sent him in an original lunar lander from 1969 that offered no radiation protection whatsoever. Besides, even if he were still alive, he could never successfully bring with him sufficient fuel to again take off from the surface of the moon and return. Sorry, the moon is not a special place where Newton's universal law of gravitation does not apply. You still need a pretty big rocket to take off from the surface of the moon, not a flimsy little shoebox like we see in Apollo mission videos. It looks to me like the lies of Cold War propagandists are finally catching up to America, and they'll eventually have to fall, just as the Berlin Wall fell. In light of today's space science projects, and the obvious challenge that they are presenting to today's scientists and engineers, the world can no longer support America's claim that Neil Armstrong and others walked on the moon over 40 years ago. Indeed, more and more, that claim is becoming pathetically laughable. It's also very damaging because it has the effect of turning people away from science altogether. What genuinely honest person today would even care about a science that is guilty of such outrageous lies in such recent times? It's time to admit that the entire Apollo mission that was once presented to us as science's greatest achievement never occurred. That it was nothing more than a Cold War propaganda story, as suggested in the new movie Interstellar. Rather than being viewed as an achievement, I believe that Apollo will be viewed by future generations as modern science's greatest embarrassment. I honestly don't think it can survive the scrutiny of future generations of scientists. As today's scientists and engineers learn the hard way how truly challenging space travel is, even over moderate distances like 3,600 miles, never mind the moon or Mars, the lie of Apollo will become too obvious to ignore any longer. They couldn't do it then, and they still can't do it today. Were they really so stupid as to think that they would never get caught in their lie? Or that when the lie was finally exposed, it wouldn't matter? Apparently so. I post this opinion with comments turned off. I ask that you answer these issues for yourself in your own heart of hearts.